wonderful because today, or as in when you're listening, it's yesterday, I'll be moving out of quarantine. I'm done. I'm
You're a
good.
free man.
I'm free. I'm a free man. I can free my boy Evan Marr. The hashtag worked. He didn't do nothing wrong. Yes, I'm out. Finally out. I'm gonna be out in about 2 hours from when we're recording this. So very happy to finally get that beautiful bit of fresh air hit me right in the face as I come out. I think it's really cold out. I have not been outside
I was gonna say, I
in
think you have some
weeks.
bad. I think you got some bad timing. You went in and it was like 75 degrees on the weekend when you had to go in. Now I think it's friggin' 30 degrees again. So
Yeah, it's funny when it was all nice outside that weekend. Going into that weekend, my friends were like, "Oh, we're gonna be able to go outside and do stuff, and we're gonna do some activities, whatever." And then obviously none of that happened because I was stuck in a hotel room. But yes, but it is better timing because I know kids coming into this hotel now who are gonna miss Thanksgiving. So
ah,
I think I hit it at the perfect time. I miss
that's
the
a bit of
cool
a pain
weather.
in the ass.
I miss the warm weather, but I don't miss Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
So I guess I'll take that trade off, even though Thanksgiving's going to be boring as hell this year, but that's okay.
yes,
Um,
better than being in a hotel. And
Better than
now,
being
like,
in a
and
hotel.
now that you've been on the inside, you can kind of give everyone the lay of the land of what to expect.
Well, I was doing TikTok vlogs of all my food that I was eating. So that I was
Ah,
doing every meal because people would ask me, "What are you getting for food in there?" And I'd tell them, they're like, "You should just make TikTok vlogs." And I'm like, "That's a good idea." So I did it. None went viral. My goal, I told my friend this, was to go so viral that like people were sending in gifts from around the country to the point where like the hotel couldn't handle the amount of gifts, and that never happened. It never happened. But
was
I
there
was, I
anything
was
was there anything promising though? Were there any good dishes? I know
um
UMass is supposed to be like the
number one
goat,
dining. No,
right?
it's number
It's
one
like that's
dining.
what they flex on more than I think anything else. Like I think is UMass, like how good their cafeterias and stuff are.
Dining halls, and yes,
Same
the
thing.
best in the nation, best in the nation. Everyone knows that. 4 years in a row, it's a dynasty at this point. But yes, the food's fine. I mean, like I'd get pulled pork sandwiches are my favorite for lunch. Dinner, a lot of lasagna, a lot of raviolis, a
Tried
lot
and
of
true.
like there's some good rotisserie chicken I liked. So I was cool with it. I was very cool with it. The worst was though they dropped my breakfast off at like 8:30 and I wouldn't wake up till like
Who, who,
10.
it was time for that. Who wakes up that early?
So it's like you're in
Jesus.
college, you can wake up now at this time. But nonetheless, happy to be done with it. And I
Yes. Well,
actually
welcome
uh
back.
yes, welcome back to real life in about an hour. So today we will quickly discuss. I want to just go over real quick where the NHL is and returning, and then we'll get to this fun New England sports survey, which I imagine we'll both have some opinions on. So, lay of the land right now in the NHL. They have said tentatively they want to start January 1st. Probably not going to happen, and it's even sadder because the NBA seems to have a plan of when they're going to come back, how they're going to come back. They released it. The NHL, not so much. What is the latest on the NHL front?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's kind of jarring when you compare the NBA to the NHL because the NBA, I mean, they just wrapped up their draft. They're starting free agency. They've already set the date for, I think, December 22nd. So the NBA is going full steam ahead. I mean, it's literally only been a little over a month since the Lakers won, and they're already just kind of just rolling with it now of just starting the new season. But yeah, I mean, you look at the NHL and what they were planning. I mean, October 6th is, I think, is when they first announced that they wanted to set January 1st as a starting date, and since then, there really hasn't been any news at all, like any concrete news, right? I mean, we heard Gary Bettman talk about, short-term hubs and possible realignment, but there's been nothing that's set in stone. It's all kind of conjecture of like this is probably what we're gonna do. It's like, all right, well, if January 1st is your starting date, you, I mean, you got to get the ball on. You have to at least have some framework set in place. And it seems like as of the past week, the NHL and NHLPA have been meeting pretty regularly. I think the Return to Play Committee, they've been meeting. But again, you're not really seeing much in terms of progress being made. And if anything, you're starting to see some other hurdles kind of pop up. I mean, there's so many things they have to go through, right? Where it's safety protocols and travel and realignment, all this shit they have to deal with. But now, like, you're seeing that the other hurdle right now is the fact that it seems like the owners reportedly want more salary deferment for the players, which understandably they're not too thrilled about having to give up more money. I mean, you look at the way the CBA was signed back in July, and they signed that extension. You're like, all right, well, this is still going to be a tough year. The next couple of years are going to be tough, but at least they have, labor peace. They at least have a framework set in place, and it wasn't ideal for the players, right? I think it's like a 20% escrow, and I think 10% of the salary is deferred next year. Not ideal, but part of the gig, right, in terms of what you have to prepare for where the league's going to lose revenue. But now apparently, according to Larry Brooks in the New York Post, the NHL wants an additional 13% deferment on top of that 10, which, I mean, I think if you crunch all the numbers, it ends up being, they're making 55 to 60% of what their actual payout is supposed to be next year, which isn't ideal, right? I mean, you also compare the fact that too that the guys who have signed this year who are signing way below market value, the guys who are still not signed. I mean, Mike Hoffman, I think, is still just waiting by his phone.
That's
Right,
right, Mike Hoffman. Oh my God, remember him?
I mean, like, there's all these guys that are still not signed yet that, all right, when they finally get paid, they're going to get paid below the market value, and you're going to get maybe half of that in terms of just the actual gross payout. So we'll kind of see what happens with the league, what they do with that. Apparently, we saw a few reports of the players not thrilled about it. I mean, you'd think that the CBA maps out the fact that they can't prorate salaries. That's not an avenue they can take, but you would think where they have a lot of these agreements set in stone in terms of these financial concessions that they wouldn't then be like, oh, by the way, here's another 13% we want to take away. So it's an ongoing process right now, but it's just one more kind of wrench to throw into the operation, right, in terms of getting this season off the ground. Because if they want to realistically start by early January, you need to get the ball rolling really quick, because again, we're going to have training camp would be starting up in less than a month now, if that's what they want to hope for. And there's a lot of work to knock out first.
There's a ton of work to knock out. And I also think that when you really look at it, the only thing I think that matters to the league more than the health of their players is the money aspect of it, right? I mean, that seems to be, this could be the holdup. I think there's also a part of them that's like COVID's getting really bad. There's a lot of spikes around the country. I mean, the whole country's spiking. Maybe we need to be wary of this. I mean, you look at what Hockey East is going through right now. Now, granted, those are colleges. Those kids aren't getting, paid to play, so it's a little bit different. But, they got to figure this out soon. They have to. I mean, I know the COVID cases are bad. We've talked about this before. But if the NBA is going to have a plan to come back, just follow their plan to come back if you can't figure out how to exactly do it. The money aspect of it, though, is a totally different thing. So that does have to get sorted out. I'm not an economist. I'm not an accountant. That is on them. That is completely on them. I'm not going to pretend to know every little in and out of what they, I don't have an opinion on what they should do. Just I want them to come back as soon as possible. And I think we all do.
Yes.
So that is where the NHL is right now. But more importantly, there is this New England sports survey that I think got sent out to like over 15,000 people, or 15,000 people via email did this. I don't know who did this, but people did, according to Channel Media and Market Research, I believe. They're a company based out of, I think, Sudbury. So every year they release this survey, and they, survey for each sport. They survey how the sports go up against each other. They survey the media, all of that. And there were some very interesting answers with the Bruins. There were some
from
very
Bruins
interesting
fans.
answers.
Wow.
Yes, Bruins fans were not too happy with their team. So to start out, I mean, how often did you follow the Bruins? The numbers weren't that crazy. But when you get into, actually, here's an interesting one. What grade would you give the Boston Bruins for the 2019-20 season? B+ is what most respondents gave them. 33% said B+. Last season, the 18-19 season, was A-. And before that, just to give it out, 17-18 was a B. So feels like B+ is kind of right. I mean, right? I mean, you won the President's Trophy, but you lost in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that makes sense.
That's
right?
a fair critical breakdown of how the season went. I thought it was gonna, when you said that, it was gonna be B minus, C plus, or something like that, because everyone only kind of remembers how the season ended, not how great they were for the first
Well,
5 plus months, right?
that comes into play with somebody else. So of course, the Bruins have like no moves they did. So that, how do you rate the following? Signing Grizzlick, signing Kevin Miller, not re-signing Krug. Obviously, that one was overwhelmingly, negative.
Mm-hmm.
But Grizzlick was positive. Kevin Miller was average. People were just kind of like whatever about it. I would like for the Boston Bruins to re-sign Zdeno Chara to a 1-year deal for next season. Most people actually were a 7, 6, or 5, which is completely agree, mostly agree, pretty much agree. But for the question, and I have not tweeted this yet, would you like the Boston Bruins to keep Tuukka Rask as their goaltender? Only 10% completely agreed. 21% rated that a 1. Completely disagree. 16% had it at 2, 19% at 3. Those are the highest numbers of them all. So Rask, overwhelmingly, fans said they would not like to keep Tuukka Rask as their goaltender. I find that fascinating. Fascinating.
I mean, you would think after. I mean, I know why people are voting that way. I mean, the way the season ended, there's people who, regardless of the reasoning why he left the bubble, you're still going to have people who are still going to, take their own opinion or not justify the very valid reasons why he left the bubble. That's been like proven now, right? Like
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a theory; it's
yes,
legit.
no, yeah. So, but again, you're not going to change people's opinions. People already had strong opinions on him anyway, which whatever. But you would think after that playoff run where Halak, held his own, but still wasn't, had quite a few games where he let a few softies in that you're like, all right, come on, man. You would think that would be a moment where people would be like, oh, wow, maybe Tuukka is pretty good, but apparently not. Apparently it's, regardless of the, track record he has or how he was a Vezina runner up last year. Apparently, I just don't think he can get out of that kind of narrative that I think people have painted him in this town, as whether it's not, you can't win with them or he's not invested or whatever kind of argument they want to kind of craft to fit how they think about him. But I mean, I understand Bruins fans are very passionate, and I can find like the reasoning for a lot of differing opinions that I can respectfully disagree with. The Tuukka Rask one I still think like melts my brain in terms
Well,
of.
it's so funny because I tweeted this out and there were a lot of fans from other teams that commented on it, and they're like, Bruins fans don't deserve Tuukka Rask. Like,
No.
really don't. I mean, and I love Bruins fans. I do. I love them. They're great. They're passionate people, and I respect that. And by the way, not all Bruins fans don't like Tuukka Rask. A lot like him. A lot like him. It's not like this is a 100% negative, but just from the survey, I mean, you have a good portion of respondents saying, "Yeah, I don't want Tuukka as my goalie anymore." I mean, what do you want? I mean, I understand that around the league, you have Jordan Binnington winning a cup randomly. You have some of these backup goalies taking their teams deep, but that is like once a playoffs does a team. One team every year does that. That's
Yeah.
not like a consistent way to win. I mean, Vasilevsky just won. Rask took him there, in a year before. Braden
Yeah.
Holtby won it the year before. Like, I don't
Well, I
understand.
mean, there's also the fact too that even these teams that have these goalies that go on crazy runs, like there's people who could probably tailor the argument that getting a hot goalie in the playoffs is just like having a running back. You can get anyone in there, but as long as the system's in place. Well, it's like, well, I mean, you can make that argument, but yeah, you can't just expect, Dan Vladar or Jeremy Swayman, who I think people need to pump the brakes on in terms of, Jeremy Swayman's a fantastic goalie prospect, but like, he's not getting dropped into the NHL right away. Like, for
That's going
as
to be a
great as,
few years before
yeah,
that
yeah,
happens.
as great as Swayman was in college, like, don't forget, like, Zane McIntyre won the Mike Richter Award and who looked like he was a world beater in the NCAA, and then he did nothing up here, right? So again,
Exactly.
not saying that Jeremy Swayman still doesn't project to be a great goalie down the road, but those guys need a lot of time to adjust to the pro ranks. So, But you look at Binnington, you look at Anton Hudobin, all these guys. It's like, yes, they're good goalies, but also look at the system around them. I mean, look at Jordan Binnington and that team that they built around them in terms of just how large that defense was, how dynamic they were. I mean, you got Petrangelo, Parayko, Jake
Edmondson.
Bouwmeester, Edmondson, all these huge dudes. Like, helps out quite a bit when you have that, right? And look at Dallas. Dallas had a big decor too, and a lot of impactful guys. So I mean, all those things kind of play into it, but it's not like, again, you're just gonna pick some random dude, and regardless of what the team is around them, they're just gonna go on this crazy unconscious run. Like, that's not how it works.
I mean, you think Rask came in second for the Vezina, like came in second for the Vezina trophy, and you have fans saying, I don't really want him. I mean, I understand at the time when the immediate impact when Rask left the bubble, we all were like, what's the deal with this? And there was always this like these whispers of there was something happened at home that got him to not want to be here. But then, he confirmed it to Greg Hill, confirmed it to Steve Conroy. Like, it all got talked about, all got reported, and it just doesn't. People don't really get it. Like, it doesn't register.
It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit the narrative, and it also, people want Rask in net. They think that. I think sometimes they think athletes and celebrities are held to a higher standard. In a lot of instances, they should be. They're getting paid a lot to do a game or act or whatever it is, but they're also people. They're people too, and they have real life issues. So, be it.
Yeah, I mean, again, it just doesn't fit. I think for a lot of these fans who've committed to the Tuukka Rask, their opinion of him, I think it just doesn't fit your narrative to find any kind of positives in it anymore. I mean, you look at the fact that Rask was all but a lock to win the Conn Smythe, in 2019, and then Game 7 happens, right? Which, again, I don't know if you want to blame him for you watch that game again and tell me which of those kind of goals he stops. And, when Joakim Nordstrom's your best player on the ice, you're probably not going to win a fucking Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final. So
it's true.
And also you look at, 2013, he was probably the Conn Smythe favorite if Boston won the Cup. And all he's kind of remembered for is the 2 goals against Chicago in Game 6. So, again, like, even if the Bruins win a Cup, let's say next year, like, you know what? A lot of people are going to be very happy with Tuukka Rask. You're still going to have the 20% of the fan base. You're still going to be like, well, anyone could have done that.
I really thought 2019 was going to be it. I really thought that was going to be the year. I really thought that was it. I was like, this is when the narrative changes. This is when people are like, oh, Rask's pretty good. But it's funny. I mean, the 2 goals in 17 seconds thing too, like, that's just net front coverage. Like, no one looks at Boychuk and Ferentz and says, like, oh, you should have covered your guy better. Like,
the Xbox control is disconnected. They're just chilling out front.
Just puck watching. Like, I find that fascinating to me that more people don't talk about the terrible net front coverage, but they just want to blame the goalie.
Evan, we're just making excuses for the guy. So
that's true. We just make excuses. We make excuses. There was another part where it was like, disagree, agree type scenario. Bruce Cassidy. Lots of people have complete faith in Bruce Cassidy as the coach of the Bruins. 62% said either completely agree or number 6, which was like pretty much agree completely. Jacobs not as much. Jacobs, they were not so kind to. But a lot of people were 7, 6, 5, and 4 with him. But there were more 3, 2, and 1s than the rest of the crew. Which player on the Boston Bruins do you most admire for what they contribute to their team? Bergeron with 28% of the vote, obviously.
That's shocking. Wow.
Marchand won 18%, got 18%. And I'm just noticing this. You know who was third? Yaroslav Halak was 17%. That is hysterical. Now, I mean,
he's a good team player, Evan.
You can admire that he came in and, got them through the Hurricanes. But, yeah, I mean, that is very ironic that he is number 3 on that list. Charlie Coyle made the list as well, actually. And then we've already kind of local guys. Kevin Hayes, top center in the league.
Number 6 center in the NHL. It's just hysterical that all of Dorchester has teamed up to vote for that list.
That's the biggest troll that I've seen since Zemgus Girgensons was in the NHL All-Star game, because his whole country just voted him in. I find that hysterical. Which player on the Bruins, for whatever reason, does not or did not meet your expectations? This I did tweet. You probably saw this.
Yes.
Rask, 35%. Backus,
Shocking.
17%, which Backus makes sense. Nick Ritchie, 8%. That makes sense. Danton Heinen, 6%. Chara, 3%. Chara's on this list like every year, but the other, I mean, Rask at 35. Rask was 8. Vez came in second for the Vezina. Like
I like how also 2 of the 5 guys aren't even on the fucking team anymore.
Oh yeah, no.
And then one of them is for the guy that was traded for him. Like
Yes.
Nick Ritchie's now higher than Danton Heinen, who has also made the list. So
yes,
and of course, it's funny how now there's people who said Chara's been slow for like 7 years, and I've just been waiting for an actual maybe slight dip in his play. So now they're finally feeling validated about it.
yes.
It's like, all right, yeah, shocking. He's not a top pairing guy at 42, 43 years old, whatever he is now. It's like, yeah, he's been pretty solid for a few years when you thought he was washed. So
yes, and last year actually, I think Krejci was first on the did not meet expectations, if I remember correctly. So that is historically like a bad look for Bruins, for the respondents. I won't say Bruins fans. I'll say respondents. They are Bruins fans, but they're not all Bruins fans.
Yes.
What one player would you like the Bruins to acquire the most?
This
Number one,
hilarious.
Connor McDavid at 17%. Number 2,
very bold pick.
Bold pick, I know, right? I think that could happen. Johnny Gaudreau, number 2, 16%. That's been kicked around before, so at least I'll give you that. That I guess is kind of realistic.
Guy.
Yeah, makes sense. Local in BC. Nikita Kucherov, third, 15%. I don't think that's happening anytime soon.
No.
And this goes to show the next 2 options show that people like are kind of delayed on their NHL reactions. Like because someone was great like 4 years ago, they're just kind of getting around to it. It's like news in the old days where it would take 100 days to get out news from one day.
Delivered by carrier pigeon.
Yes. Steven Stamkos, 11%. Nothing against Stamkos, but there are a lot of guys I can think of I'd want before him.
Played less than 3 minutes in the playoffs, and they still
scored a goal, though. Scored a goal.
He did.
This one is the most baffling. Carey Price, 6%. Carey Price.
I mean, dude, he's been the best goalie for the last, at least 5 years, right?
Oh,
he's kept that record going. I mean,
yeah, incredible. It's the money he makes. You want to talk about a goalie who makes a lot and doesn't really live up to it. Carey Price, injuries. Has not historically got the Canadians deep. The one time he got to the conference final, he got hurt, if I remember correctly. Bruins fans, if you don't like Tuukka Rask, you would stop rooting for the team if Carey Price was the goaltender with his current contract and with everything he brings. You would hate it. And Carey Price is elite. I'm not saying he's bad, but I mean, good God. Like, to think that I love when they pull the players every year, like the Athletic will pull the players, and goalie you fear the most, Carey Price. It's like, really? That's who you fear the most? But so be it.
Yeah.
So be it.
Bruins fans are going to be like, yeah, I wish they had, Danny Heatley. It's like someone from, 08 who's it's like just slightly off by a decade or so.
Yeah, I wish they had Jonathan Chichu. So number 5, I think number 6, Victor Hedman at 6%. That makes sense. I mean, you're not getting him, but he would.
Yes,
they could use
a lot of teams would love to have Victor Hedman.
So in your opinion, what could the Boston Bruins do to improve their team? Number 1, make sure to get younger and youth, 23%. You'll like number 2. More physical play on the ice overall, 20%. Number 2. Reliable, consistent, stronger goaltending, 15%. Number 3, better and stronger scouting and draft, 10%. Build and improve and strengthen the third and fourth lines, 5% at the last place. You know what answer should be first? Better scouting and drafting should be number 1. I don't know why that's not number 1. Anyone who follows the team should know that this team blows at drafting and has for a while now. And it's pretty clear. I'm very surprised that was not number 1. I mean, I guess if for a group that hates Rask like this, I guess you might expect nothing less. But I would expect that should be number 1.
I was actually kind of surprised that number 1 is embracing the youth movement, because I feel like we're gonna check back in February and March, and it's gonna be Zaboral and on these guys getting 16, 17 minutes a night. And understandably, these guys are probably, if they're getting those minutes, have a little bit of good, a little bit of bad, the typical bumps in the road that come with adjusting to the NHL. So, like, Bruins fans are going to be give these guys a really long leash in terms of, any mistakes they make on the ice. So,
Oh yeah.
That's going to happen, right? Where it's going to be like, what the fuck, we got Zaboral here. He's a first-round pick, and Joe didn't hit the pad. Like, what are we doing here? We should have signed Chara, like I said, after, like, yelling the entire offseason of not signing Chara. So,
yes.
The fact that I think people are ready to embrace the movement, which I guarantee you it mostly has to do with Jack Studnicka, which, like, when Jack Studnicka does not start the year in the NHL, people are going to lose their shit.
Or when he has, like, 5 points in his first 15 games, people are like, oh, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
So I can't wait for that either, because both of those things I think are likely to happen. And as we say all the time, if Studnicka scores 100 points this year, wins the Calder, amazing, like, great. But I think people's expectations are like a little, and by a little I mean way too high, for him. I mean, again, I hope he pans out. I'm not saying he's not, but as we say, like, you can't expect this kid to walk in and be an immediate impact the way that you think he's going to be.
Right.
So the last section of the poll, what the fans are saying. So people, I guess, left quotes and they picked the best ones. So one person said, "Well, I always believe in family first. What Tuukka Rask did to this team was in such poor form. Do you know how many players over time have sacrificed for the better good of the team? We're fans and we get pissed off at someone like him for doing that. But at the end of the day, we are just fans. What he did to his teammates is the real issue. That is your job," with a bunch of exclamation points. "These coworkers are depending on you, and we're in a situation where they could have achieved more had you not abandoned them. I used to have so much respect for that guy, one of my son's favorite players. Now I cannot wait until they get rid of him. How can they ever trust that guy again?" Oh boy. That's Marty from Weymouth. No, I have no idea who that is.
It's probably who it was. I mean, someone asked me about it before, of like, what do you think the players' reaction to the Rask thing is? And it's like, listen, was it disappointing? Yeah, no shit. Like, I'm sure you would love to have your fucking Vezina finalist goalie in net for you during this fucked up playoff series, this format that you had to go through. It's like, are they gonna, like, just hold this against him off of a thing where you had to go visit, like, you had to be home because of a family emergency? It's like, I don't know. You look at hockey players and the stuff they go through over the course of a season and what they buy in to win a cup, and it's like, all right, these guys, if it's eating up pucks and getting injured and playing through broken ribs and separated shoulders, that's just part of the gig, right? That's part of the job. As like it or not, that's what you do. When you're in a pandemic and an emergency that hasn't hit this country in over 100 years, and you're having a medical emergency at home and you're separated from them and it involves your kid, that's not part of your job. Like,
Correct.
That's not what you sign up for when you become a hockey player, is to just tune that out to go play a fucking game. Like, that's, the way I view it. And, again, you're not going to go into this year having players be like, yeah, I know it sucked what Tuukka did. Yeah, no shit, you're not going to hear that. But I think honestly that there's that disconnect between what these players kind of sign up for when they become hockey players and what they invest in to win a Stanley Cup, and what the circumstances that Rask faced, I don't think have any bearing on, the unwritten rules of hockey and what these guys all kind of collectively buy in for. I don't think you can make that comparison at all. If you do, I think you're a shithead. So
yeah, I mean, the only sus thing Rask did was he didn't tell his teammates. That was like what got people pissed off, and I think there's a little bit of there, like, oh, Rask should have went in and told the team. Like, I still think that, I mean, if there was an opportunity to, if there's one flight home, you got to make it. That's totally different, then you got to go. But the fact that was kind of not really told to the team always kind of was like the one thing that, like, if you could go back and redo, probably could redo. But the rest of it, you're right. Like, you don't sign up for, oh, my son is having this at home. Oh, I gotta go play a game. Sorry, kid. Sorry, wife and kids who are left alone in a pandemic. You guys fend for yourselves. It's like, that does not make sense. Like, doesn't make sense. Someone else said, what I see when I look at the Boston Bruins is just plain inconsistency. It is just as simple as that. They are not consistent from night to night. The Lions do not play consistently, and they are inconsistent in the playoffs from game to game. Individual players lack consistency. You cannot win a cup that way, and it is frustrating because it is as hard to fix as it is hard to watch. Now, I think there is a legitimate critique that they are inconsistent at times.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that's that far off. I don't think
No.
that's like completely far off. It's just we kind of read it in that Bruins fan voice, so we kind of laugh at it. But I don't think that's that far off. It's nowhere near the Rask comment.
No.
So that's the survey. That was the survey this year. Those were all the Bruins questions. There was some other stuff based on like where the Bruins rank among the other sports, and I believe the Celtics passed them. The Celtics and the Bruins always are like 1 and 2.
Yeah.
They're always right there. So it's not, like which of the following, no, actually, never mind. That was,
I think I saw. I think Celtics were just ahead of them. It's like Patriots overwhelmingly, Red Sox, even though they've dipped quite a bit, and I think Celtics are ahead by maybe 2 or 3 percentage points. I want to say so, but that's kind of what the tiers have been, right? Like the Bruins and Celtics are always kind of going back and forth.
yeah, the Bruins. It's always usually Patriots by a mile, Red Sox like in between third and first, and
Yeah.
then Celtics and Bruins fighting for the 3 spot. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's that far off. I think, and most people put the Bruins and Celtics as the team next prime to win a championship. So I think that's also pretty interesting too. Before I let you go, Connor, anything that you're working on at BSJ that people can look forward to?
Yeah, we have a few projects we're working on. We're looking at a few prospects that we're hoping are, or at least Bruins fans we hoping are going to make a big step forward this year. So we're talking to a few younger players. In the coming weeks, we have a breakdown on some of the best trades in Bruins history in the post-lockout era. So we'll be looking at that. There are a few that are recent that are on the list so far that we're kind of combing through, some good, some not so good. So we'll have all that over at BSJ. So subscribe at bostonsportsjournal.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at ConnorRyan_93.
Go do all that. For Poke the Bear, I'm Evan Marinofsky. That's Connor Ryan. You have yourselves a great rest of your day.